Well, here we are. It's late at night in the haunted forest, sitting around the campfire, thinking to ourselves, you know, maybe in the last couple of years since COVID, you folks can start to believe, much like I have for a long time. Some people, they just can't believe their own eyes. It's all just what they seen on TV, what somebody else told them. God damn it. That's not working out. There we go. Bit of a trick to it. It's an old lighter. Nevertheless, we can see after the whole COVID routine that we've gone through a few years back how people can deny what they're seeing with their own eyes, and they'll just believe what somebody tells them or what they saw on TV, right? And some ways we just say, oh, this person's a liberal, this person's a conservative, or even worse, you could be a Trumpy, right? Oh, well, they can't understand. It's not that. It's that they have confirmation bias, and somebody said something to them, something that they wanted to believe in anyways. But none of those things were what they saw right in front with their own two eyes. And you started to notice there's a lot more people out there who don't even believe their own eyes anymore, right? Well, maybe if we can look at it this way and we can realize there's not that many people out there. They've been lying to you. You've had a massive population drop out west here in British Columbia, where I've been living my whole life. In all the schools, when I was a kid, there was 30 students. Oh, the schools are overcrowded. There's too many people. There's too many people. But all around the area that I lived at, there was schools that had been closed down that were owned by the government. Sometimes they used the facilities for other things. Oftentimes they were just closed. And even though they opened new schools, those schools were named after the old school. Sometimes they demoed the building and put up a new building there. Sometimes they moved it to a new site, and then it kept the name. They transferred the name from one end of the block to the other end of the block and demolished the old building. And after the new building was put up, there was 25 old stock Canadians and 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 of different ethnicities, and there was only 1 or 2 that were the same ethnicity, and it was one from here, there, or the other place. By the time I was in high school, we had so many immigrants. There's just no place to put them all. There's so many people. But it wasn't that many more. And it was now, there was 2 of this type and 2 of that ethnicity and 2 from this other country where there was a war recently or some such other detail. And now, when you go into the children's schools in the same area, different areas, there's 5, if that even, old stock, the children of old stock Canadians. And 25, 15 are from one ethnicity. Depends which ethnicity that is, depending on the area of the Lower Mainland that the school is taking place at. But there's 15 from another ethnicity. And then the other 10 are that mixed. But there's a couple of this country, a couple of this region, a couple from this ethnicity or culture or religion. And they're all in groups. And they all stay in their groups. Their ethnic conclaves, I think they call it. And you still couldn't do the math on the rates of abortion and where all the people went, where all the children went, folks. We've had to import a whole generation to cover up what's going on right in front of your eyes. And you say there's more immigrants. The immigrants, once they get here, first, second, by the time they're in their third generation, their ability to produce replacement population is back down to almost what it is for the old stock Canadians because of universal, free medical care. This has nothing to do with immigration, folks. This has to do with the Hitlerian, oh, it's worse than Hitler ever could manage, ever could fathom, democide of your own children. And you didn't see it happening when it was happening right in front of your eyes. They lied to you on the media and told you there was more immigrants. There wasn't. There was fewer. There was fewer than there was before. There was a big boom of needing more schools in the 50s with the baby boomers. But even before that, there were schools that were all over because they were smaller schools, right? So less people, one would think. But there was more schools, shorter distances. People had fewer vehicles and had to walk uphill both directions. You remember those stories? They don't talk about that in the mass media and the zeitgeist anymore. It's a joke. It was a joke. It lasted for 70 years. But all those smaller schools spotted all over the place, and then it's still government property. They didn't do anything with it. And you could find them, and you could see that, and you could go, huh, I go to this school up here, but this other school, that's where I take my dog to the park. And it's not a functional all over the place. They finally, with the rates of immigration and birth rates, and they're building schools, but they're finally getting to the point that they're like, ooh, we gotta start closing some of these schools again. But they can't tell you about that. They have to tell you it's for earthquake safety or it's for some other bullshit. But they won't tell you about how there was actually more people and more economy and more stuff happening when there was fewer people living in the same area as you are. Even though those spaces in between were bigger, people were more spread out and not living in apartments and 30-floor condominiums. But now that we have these 30-floor condominiums, those are all empty. And there's not enough people staying in there to even have their children fill up the schools in the area. Because even if you have these massive condos, they're not having kids because of the high cost of living, because of the high rates of abortion, because nobody can bring a child into this world. That would be too terrible. That's just the worst possible outcome you could ever imagine. How could you contribute to somebody else's suffering. Well, the reason why you know that they would suffer is because you've been suffering under this serfdom that you've been living under in Canada for the last 70 fucking years, because you've been willfully blind to the fucking suffering. You've been willfully deaf to the cries of pain of your neighbors. You've been willfully dumb to tell anybody about your own issues that you've had, because, oh, that would be embarrassing, and we're trying to put on a facade of being rich and having the prestige of living in the rich area, because it's kind of exclusive and you can't just buy a house here unless you're Beverly Hillbillies rich, unless you're some sort of celebrity rich. They still didn't build as many schools as there was here in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So they were much smaller schools. They were spotted, moreover, fewer people had cars, fewer buses. They haven't caught up to where they were, that they have, because of the densification. So they've surpassed those numbers of enrollment. The school that used to have 300 or 400 or 500 kids was once a school that used to just have 40 or 75 or 100 in the previous generations, and they were spotted all over the place. But now that we have 30-floor condos, there's not enough people in that area to fill up the schools, and they're seeing their enrollment drop in the children. They've just built a bunch of new schools, and then they're having to lay off teachers, because now it started with the colleges first, but in areas of Vancouver, in areas of North Vancouver, Burnaby, they've had to shut down and shutter parts of their schools and lay off the teachers. Oh, this is terrible. Having smaller classrooms so they can stave off the layoffs. There's been parts where, because Surrey is where the massive inflow of just off the boaters go, and they all got kids and they all got handouts, the gimmigants, they keep building extra additions to these schools. By the time that they get them built, they're not going to have the bodies. They're in the process of not having the bodies to fill those spaces, because they had projected further future outperforming growth that were outpaced the growth that they could never keep up with that pace, because they took the highest numbers, the most unrealistic numbers that they wanted to believe in, but they wouldn't look at what was going on around them with their own two eyes and see all the house for sale signs, all the people moving from the older parts of town to the newer development parts, because they had to move to a cheaper place, and then all the new development places were more expensive, and so they were moving back to the older parts of town that were less ravaged by the development bug, the development marauders. Are you going to start to listen when the teachers' unions start screaming that they're firing the teachers because there's not enough kids in the classrooms, because this is what's coming. It's been 2024, 2025, and now 2026. We have less people in all the areas, in all the school districts, in all the real estate developers' projections, all the rental market, all the jobs market, because the jobs aren't here, folks. You don't think that people are going to move their kids and their whole family at the chance of a job when they can't find one here, and they certainly can't find one that pays the bills when the bills keep getting higher and the hours keep getting less? They've already been telling you they have declining enrollment in a lot of areas. These are out west in Vancouver, West Vancouver, North Vancouver, and Burnaby. Other places, what do you know? Where the house prices are cheaper, where the cost of living is cheaper, where the mortgage rates, or not the mortgage rates, but the mortgage debt amounts are less. Well, it's just simple math, folks. One side goes down, and the other side of the scale, it either flies up and knocks everything off, and it goes off the Libra scales, and then it lands back and balances and kind of settles with the other side of the scale. Isn't that how things work? The swinging of the pendulum. You're about to see it. There's this college that I see them building that they're still doing the work on. By the time they get this whole new wing of the college built, they're not going to be able to pay the professors to fill the classrooms, because the classrooms are going to be half, 2/3 empty. They've already been firing a lot of these college professors because they don't have enough students, so they're shrinking their class load already in just a few years. By the time it gets to 2030, when all the boomers have shuffled up, well, not all, but the vast majority will have exceeded their average lifespan, and they will have shuffled off this mortal coil, they're going to start telling you about that there's no children. They're not going to tell you about the massive waves of death of all, Keith Richards might actually die too one of these days soon. How are you going to handle that? You can handle David Bowie and all these other boomer celebrities. It's going to be every few months, there's going to be another one. How do you think they're going to handle it when Keith Richards finally kicks the bucket? Because that's the Canadian economy. It's basically... I don't think the Canadian economy is going to even last as long as Keith Richards. But are you going to have that realization? Are you going to have that sense of impending doom when they can't make? What about that Chuck Norris guy? He's getting up there too. He's pushing 80, folks. I think bloody well Keith Richards, so they say. What are you going to do? What's the self-realization going to come to when you have to realize the Keith Richards meme? Is the whole world going to weep like they do for the death of the Queen? My God, because everybody who's not of that, everybody who's still in that generation is going to be, oh, am I next? Everybody who's younger is going to go, oh, geez, that meme doesn't make sense anymore. Oh, geez. Why do we build all these houses and schools for people who don't exist? Because they never did, or they're about to not exist anymore. Either side of the scale, you want to look at, something ain't right here in Canada, folks. And when you look with your own two fucking eyes, maybe you can see it. Maybe you can fucking see it. Because I sure as hell see it every day out here on the streets. And I can't talk to people because they think I'm fucking crazy because they're so fucking confirmation biased out. And they don't want to believe it. They don't want to hear it. And they won't look at it. But I'm glad you do. So thanks for looking at my video. And have a nice and very merry, wonderful fuck off. Now, I don't know. There's a fucking silhouette of the goddamn. There you go. Fuck off.